Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Today, the voice of the Washington football team, Bram, Weinstein, and I kind of ignore the ugly outing that occurred Sunday and instead take more of a look at the big picture. What this 2-6 start means. Where is this team headed? What's the confidence level of this group, meaning the coaches and the players, can orchestrate a turnaround, not just in terms of talking playoffs, but actually start to play some good games and more. Don't forget, you can follow Bram on Twitter at RealBramW, and you can read my work on ESPN.com. It's the bye week, but we will put out a couple more podcasts this week. I'll be talking with JP Finley and Nikki Javala for a couple episodes as we dive into covering this franchise, especially over the last couple of years, and also answer some of your questions. Folks, I feel your pain, and I feel bad for you that you guys have to endure this, another season that has gone wrong. But now, let's get to my conversation with the voice of the Washington football team, Bram Weinstein. Well, Bram, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that game because that was it was an ugly game. It was boring. It was everything. But this team is 2-6, and there's a bigger picture thing we have to look at here. And in the big picture, first of all, what's your level of surprise at them being 2-6 at this point?
I'm a little surprised. Looking at the schedule from the get-go, I think we knew it was daunting. And, if you told me they'd be 3-5 at this point, I would have been disappointed, but not surprised. And I really think I thought 4-4, they'd be good. Like if they had gotten through it 4-4, I would have felt pretty good about that. So yeah, I'm a little surprised. I did not think they were going to come out gangbusters, just based on who they were playing. But this is the second game that, unfortunately, I think they woulda, coulda, shoulda won this in New Orleans. And without it, I think we'd be feeling all right at 4-4. And obviously the season's on the brink at 2-6.
A little bit on the game today. I mean, we can talk about injuries and all this and all that. Denver has a decimated defense too. And they held this team to 10 points. And I think that's what's disappointing is that while there are things you can look at with this offense, that's the bottom line. This offense, the last 2 weeks, move the ball up and down the field, but where you make your money is in the red zone, and they're not getting it done there. But Bram, I look at this offense, and I'm not making excuses, but because I'm not going to do that. But you look at the offense, like what are they playing with here? I like DeAndre Carter's stories. He's been a nice returner, but offensively, he's not the top threat. He caught a touchdown pass. He's not like, and we were talking just before about, I'm watching Cooper Rush and what he's doing with those Dallas receivers. He's got Cooper, he's thrown to Ezekiel Elliott, he's got, CeeDee Lamb. There's a lot of options there. One of the things this offense hasn't developed are other guys outside of Terry McLaurin, and that's been a major problem. And they were supposed to have solved that with Curtis Samuel and De'Ami Brown, and they haven't done that.
Yeah, that's true. And listen, Logan Thomas didn't play either and hasn't in a month.
No, he's been a bigger loss too than I think that I expected.
So right. And fair, like to be fair to them, like they have lost people here. And one of the big, I thought, hanging Chad type big things coming into the season was all these new people are coming in here. How are they going to make it work? And you don't add in all the injuries that come along with it. And it's turned out to be a jumbling of the roster. And to your point, like when you don't have Logan Thomas, who you spent the money on, and Curtis Samuel is having at least a lost half season, if not a lost full season, we'll see. You don't have your guys. And, then add in Sheriff isn't playing, Cosby isn't playing, Lucas isn't playing, Roulier gets hurt, and all of a sudden, your offensive line's a sieve, by no fault of your own. And it all kind of goes the wrong way. So I'm not trying to make excuses either, but that's reality.
That's
that's reality. And to be fair to them, you're like, if you want to point out, like, here are all the things that they, these are the things they don't have. Well, these are also the people that are hurt.
Right.
And like, let's be fair about that.
Well, I look at Logan Thomas, and I found this stat after the game. in because the red zone troubles the last couple weeks. In the red zone with Logan Thomas in the game, they averaged, I think it was 15 and a half points per game on red zone drives. In the last 4 weeks, they've averaged about 5.5 points in the red zone on drives. So that's where a guy like that makes a big difference. And, this was an offense that didn't have that. Nobody thought this offense would be better than, middle of the pack, probably at best. That's what I was anticipating where they might get to. You take a lot, you go back to Ryan Fitzpatrick, you go to all that stuff. There's not a lot there. But having said that, it's still disappointing to see what we've been seeing.
I agree. There were some things today that I think were a little overdue, like Garrett Patterson getting a shot and, making the most of his shot. And J.D. McKissick is a playmaker for them, and he didn't get lost in the offense this particular week. And so there were some things there, but, they've got their backup quarterback playing with, in some cases, third and fourth stringers on their offensive line. They're missing their starting tight end. They were hoping that their receiving core would look different than the group that's out there. Like, there's a lot missing here. And they're only going to go, from the get-go, the reality was they were only going to go as far as their defense took them. And, I think their defense, while they didn't play badly today or didn't play badly last week, didn't make key stops when they needed them to. They gave up a touchdown drive in the fourth quarter. And that was, unfortunately, unacceptable. And this is why they've lost again.
One of the other problems that in looking at them, too, is a year ago, they bring in guys like JD and Logan Thomas, and they were hits. And they draft Chase Young, and he was a big hit last year, second half of the year in particular. They got Cam Curl in the draft, big hit. When you look at their class, when you look at what they did this offseason, the guys that they brought in were Curtis Samuel. I think he's played, 27 snaps this year. And who knows when he'll come back. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's out. William Jackson III has not been what we had anticipated, and maybe he gets there eventually when he acclimates more, but so far he's been up and down. And then you look at the draft picks and Jamin Davis, I still say he's improving. Now I want to go back and watch the game yesterday, but there hasn't been that impact guy. And then you lose some of the, guys for whatever, but they haven't had that impact player. And then second year guys like Chase Young expected more. Antonio Gibson thought he'd be a bigger home run hitter, right? And that hasn't happened. So there's been a misses in the offseason, De'Ami Brown, misses, and then lack of development of some of the young guys.
Yeah, no, it all adds up to why they're 2-6, why there were some things being said. This was foreshadowed, John. We were there in the summer. By the end of the training camp, there was a weird vibe going on. There was a really weird vibe.
That last week and a half.
Something was really off. And until they tell you what it is, you don't know what it is, but something didn't feel right. And I wasn't surprised they started the season slow. And, I had hoped it would turn. And unfortunately, I think the schedule has made it very difficult for it to turn unless they're going to play better or take advantage of their opportunities or not go 1 for 6 or whatever into the red zone or have 3 kicks blocked. They don't have any margin for error right now. And they lost to a 500 team on the road, a team they probably would have, could have, should have beat. But once again, they blew their own opportunities over and over, and they have only themselves to blame in the end. This is 2 weeks in a row where they only have themselves to blame. At least last week, you look at that team that they played and go, well, they might be in the Super Bowl losing home. So it is what it is. This week, they played a team that was 3-8 in their last 11 at home, hadn't won in the month of October, and couldn't figure out a way to do it. And that's what's disappointing.
Yeah. And, and it's funny because then you look at the 2 blocked field goals, and that was the biggest move in the first half of the year was Ron Rivera getting rid of Dustin Hopkins, which I understand the frustration with Hopkins. He was inconsistent, and you got to a point where, is he going to get any better? Is this what he's going to be? But I never liked cutting him for Chris Blewett, a guy who hadn't kicked in 5 years. That was a massive roll of the dice, and it hasn't worked out. And those block kicks today, those are on him. He's been low on these kicks. And, Ron said the second one he thought was an operation thing. I don't know. The kick would look low again. So that's been a big thing that has not panned out. That I didn't like it at the time because of that swap. If you brought in a veteran kicker, if you had had drafted a kid, okay, I get it. I didn't like this one from the start. And I don't know about you.
It felt like there was an admission that I'm going to do something that was publicly pressured. And, he had really stood firm with really everything he had done. And even before the game before Hopkins was finally released, he had kind of admitted out loud, he goes, there aren't a lot of options out there, and so it's not like there's a lot of these great kickers that are just out there that we could go get. And that has merit to it. And then he did it after the miss. And it's kind of hard to, it's backfired. It goes without saying
in a big way
that it's backfired. And I don't know what else to say about it other than at the time when he did it, it's one thing if you bring in a guy who's, on his second or third team and he's been a pro kicker and he's been around the block, or he's a draft pick of yours and
right.
You decided you're going to do this. But to take on a guy who hasn't been here, been in the league for 5 years, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to justify, and then you just hope it goes well, and it hasn't. The first, it's just unacceptable. It is.
It's wholly unacceptable, and like I said, it just felt like I just never liked the move. What do you think do you think that they'll end up benching Heineke for Kyle Allen?
I don't know. I mean, obviously Rivera left that up for debate.
Yeah.
I like you need to watch this again. Yeah. I really don't think my gut was Heineke didn't play that poorly, actually. But I could be wrong about that. I really don't think this is on him. Yeah, are they not scoring enough points? Sure. Are they not executing in the red zone? Sure. Were a couple of those on him in Green Bay? Sure. Were these maybe on him? Maybe, but he's not making a ton of mistakes. I mean, the 2 interceptions that were thrown, come on, one was a Hail Mary and the other one, was at the end of a game, a heave, to try to do something in desperation, so I don't feel like he's playing poorly. I don't.
I don't know that it would make any difference. I think it's just you're swapping a guy for a guy.
I'll say what I said last week. If Ryan Fitzpatrick is back healthy, then I think they'll play him. And if they don't, then I think it's a move just to make a move.
Yeah, and it's funny because my gut tells me with Fitzpatrick, well, who knows what happens with him. We'll see what the MRI shows. But I think at this point, if I'm Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm just going to wait till the off season to get ready, get healthy, and we'll see.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. I mean, at his age, does he at 2 and 6, does he want to try to rush back? And, look, nobody wants to hear this, but business decisions are made.
Oh, all the time.
And yeah. And again, I don't blame the guy if he makes a business decision. So let's see how that works out.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know. The only reason why I would look at it is if you say, well, can Kyle Allen give them something better down the field? Because Taylor hasn't been great throwing the ball down the field. But like you, I don't look at this game and say, oh, this quarterback was just horrible. I think the offense was bad. And I think, you get in the red zone and there's an occasional call where I don't like the play call, or you look up and again, that's an area that Logan Thomas would be really good for you. And, I look at the touchdown or the pass against Green Bay last week, the one to Ricky Seals-Jones. I think if it's Logan Thomas, he boxes out better. He uses his whole body better. Not that Seals-Jones is small, but Thomas is just bigger and he uses his size well. So he doesn't have to be as open as some others do to get a ball. So I think that's been a big problem for Heineke. But the other thing is some of those second-year guys, it's been disappointing that they haven't had bigger first halves, and that's Chase, Antonio in particular. Yeah. Because you thought I thought Antonio Gibson was going to have a big year. I thought Chase was going to have a big year, and you can't say that either one is. Neither one has done what they've thought, and that's another problem.
No, they haven't. Like there's a couple of people that have had, I would say, kind of standout years. John Allen stands out to me
Really good. Yeah.
as someone who's had a really good year, but there hasn't been, I would have said actually Chase Roulier too until he got hurt.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we kind of are where we are. Like, I don't know. I am surprised by this. I really am. I did not expect their record to be this bad, and I'm hoping that it's going to change in the second half. But I think realistically, for any of us to think that we're going to end up, in the playoffs, I think is unlikely at this point. Really, really, really unlikely.
I think you have to. With the way, to me, the way I'm would look at it is like you need to show that this thing is going the right direction. So, I know, again, some fans are going to start saying they want the higher draft pick. You want progress. Like the one high pick is not turning this team around unless it's Peyton Manning coming out, right? And so you need to see not with this quarterback class. So you need to see progress. And if you don't see that, then again, they have bigger problems. Because if Chase Young doesn't come through, you got bigger problems than just getting a high pick and a quarterback in here. And that's what I always say. Like, you want to see them be more competitive, because if they're not, it's going to take a lot longer to get to where you want to go. Do you think is Rivera? Do you have confidence in this coaching staff that they can get this done?
Yeah, I mean, I have to. I mean, they've bounced back a million times. This is also year 2 for Rivera. So for me to sit here and think like, oh, it's a lost cause, I don't feel that way. I do think offensively that they are hamstrung, obviously, by a lot of injuries right now. And so I think to be fair to them, they're not playing with a full deck for sure. I would like to see the defense play better, and largely over the last few weeks they have. Not enough to win, obviously, but largely they have. So I'm going to hold out hope. There's 9 games left. I just think realistically, what's the end record going to look like? I don't think it's going to be pretty, but will they get better? I hope so. And I still think the defense has, a lot of room to grow and be the type of unit I think we expected them to be.
Well, they're still growing. You're right. I would agree with that. And then part of that is the way Jamin Davis progresses, and then you watch Landon Collins against the Broncos, and you can see how well he's doing in that role. It's a really good role for him, and that helps this defense. And then if Jamin Davis progresses and gets better, that will help the defense. So the defense has a chance to be what you hoped it could be by the end of the year, or at least you have the right people developed. On offense, it's just a mishmash of parts, and they're just going to have to survive and get through the year as the way it looks right now, because you don't have your quarterback of the future, and you still need more parts. It'd be nice to see Curtis Samuel out there. It'd be nice to see De'Ami Brown come back and see if he can actually help, and see if you can actually have the offense you thought you'd have on the field at one time this year. But that probably won't happen, because that would depend on Ryan Fitzpatrick coming back. So that's why I say defensively, you still see more. You still see the group that should have been out there all season together, and they need to get better. And I want to see more. Like I said, I want to see more from Chase Young. And I'll say this: like, if you don't see more from Chase Young and Montez Sweat, then I think you need to bring somebody in here who can work with those guys better along that line. Whether to give Sam Mills some help up front, get a guy who can help with the pass rush moves, because that's an area where Chase Young really needs some developing. Or do you make a change there? I'm not going that far yet. Let's see where it goes. But I do think you need to bring somebody in here like that. And I think, and somebody brought this up in the press box after the game, I think it was like either Nicky Javal or Sam Fortier, somebody about losing Ryan Kerrigan. Now, I understand, like, you get rid of a guy a year too early. That's a Bill Belichick credo. But I think one thing that he helped with these guys, he did set a tone. He's not a guy that goes up to everybody and just teach and all this. But when you go to him, he will help you. And I think he was good for Chase Young in that regard. You have a veteran pass rusher around, and they don't have that. And I think those guys need that, whether it's from a coaching perspective or from a player perspective. And so that's something I'd like to see as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room here, and I think, but we are at game 8. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about right now, I really feel like I'm with you, and I don't think you're wrong for thinking about this stuff. And obviously, like, people are going to be disappointed. but all those decisions don't happen until December,
No,
January,
those are
and
not
that's the thing. And perspective can change if things change.
Sure.
And that's why I want to see what happens for the rest of the season. But, I'm disappointed in this game today. Like, this was a winnable game. It's average to bad offense and a decimated defense, especially in the middle. And they scored 10 points and lost, and in some cases towards the end of the game, it was silver plattered for them and they still couldn't win.
Yeah.
And, that's hard to take for sure. And this season has gone a direction I don't think we thought it would go. But I'll go back to originally when you be like, are you surprised by the record? I would say I didn't think it would be that much better than what it is right now. I just think it's the way that they've lost. And in this particular case, in this particular game, this was a tough one to swallow. But listen, we have a bye week. We got 9 games to go. Let's see where they end up at the end of it. And then we can revisit all these things you're talking about changes.
Right. And that's why I say, I think the big key to me is the defense, because this is still by and large the group you will see next year, a lot of them. Whereas offensively, I think there will be more changes, whether it's quarterback, now having said that, if you can get Logan Thomas will be back, Brandon Sheriff will be back. Whether or not Curtis Samuel comes back, who the hell knows? But if he does come back, then you start to see what could it become in 2022 when you get, a true starting quarterback. Because that Taylor Heineke, again, as we've talked, if he projects just to be a good backup, that is really good for them, because then you can cross that off the list. And
100%.
When I say that, I don't mean I'm not demeaning him. I think the guy was at home last year. If to say that now is not an insult, it's a credit to him. But, he's not a starting quarterback for a team that wants to go somewhere. And again, that's not even putting the loss on him. I'm just saying that when you look at the development over the next 9 weeks, the defense has to really come through, because that's the group that you have your nucleus, you have your quote unquote stars. And that's why, I bring up the line stuff, because I've been disappointed in what I've seen from Chase Young. And, he had the nice strip fumble. The guy plays hard. He does all that. But as a pass rusher, is he developing? And I don't know that you can say that he is, and not to the degree I thought he might in year 2. Doesn't mean he won't get there, because the kid is still uber talented, and I do think eventually he will. What you always hear about him, he works hard, and it matters to him. He studies a lot. It's just that it hasn't come the way I think this team has needed it to come. And I don't want to put it all on him. It's just that's when you look at this team, you look at guys who can develop to a certain point, and he is one of them. He's a guy who can be your blue chip guy if he develops, and they don't have him.
I agree. He needs to be. He's the number 2 overall pick.
Yeah.
He needs to be that guy. There was a lot of promise in him last year. There was a big play at the end of the game this past week, that he made that gave him a shot at the end.
It was a really nice play by him.
I agree with you. Yep. And I really, I agree. Like, listen, all of their equity has been put into this defensive line. It's going to have to be the group that leads them. But if it's not going to be, then they're in trouble. That means all their first round picks over the last 5 years aren't panning out for them.
Right.
And that's not a recipe for being good. I think we all thought collectively they'd be a terrific group. I still think there's room for that. And individually, they have major moments. And Allen, in the case of Allen, he's having a great season.
Yeah.
But, we do have a ways to go. And I feel like it is early to call on what are we going to do next. We've got half a season to go.
Yeah.
So I think we need to, there's too much time to have the conversation about this stuff.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why, but like I said, I keep going back to the defense, because your group is there. Like, you're going to add here and there, but the nucleus is there. So I think that's why I want to see them, how they progress, and the pieces are there. And it'd be great to see Chase Young have a good second half, because again, it's there. The kid is talented. And it's not like he's been playing terrible. It's just that you expected more. So how does he finish? What does he do? He's, this is a development for him. He is not a finished product. And that's a good thing, because if he was, then you'd be more concerned, but he's not. He's got a long ways to go. I think Montez Sweat is still developing, and Jamin Davis still developing. Landon Collins has made an impact inside. So there's reason for hope with that defense. And then if you get guys back, and at least start to be competitive. I think that's the thing, Bram. We can just finish on this too. Like, they haven't played that one game where you say, that's just a really good game. I know they lost, but that was a really good game that they played. They really haven't had that. Green Bay would have been close if they converted in the red zone, but they haven't had that.
That was the game.
Yeah.
That was the game. They should have lost 24-20, and everybody would have been like, you know what? Like, everyone loses in Lambeau, and that's okay, but we're right with them.
Yeah.
And because the score was what it was and they didn't take advantage of the opportunities, it didn't look good. And in the end, when I rewatched that, I went, that was the most complete game they played all year.
Yeah. And
they just didn't score in the red zone. And closer, they would have won.
And that's what I want to see. Just do that. And, it's funny because I was looking at the schedule. And again, I guess one on this. Looking at the schedule compared to last year, and last year they were 2-6. They lost to Detroit, and I think they went to 2-7. Then they won 3 in a row because they had Cincinnati, and they had, I think it was Dallas. They had the big win at Dallas, and you could see the confidence grow. And that's what they need. Like, the Bengals game was an ugly game, and they won because Joe Burrow got hurt. And if he doesn't get hurt, I don't know if they win that game, but he did. And so you eke it out, and then that confidence flowed into the Dallas game, and then they won at Pittsburgh. So they need to have that one game that can get them going. Again, it's not about the playoffs. It's about playing well. And, you get a couple plays in the red zone, you start to feel better. So we'll see what happens, Bram. I don't, it's easy to be down right now if you're a fan, but like you said, there is a long way to go, and there's still a lot to be analyzed and developed here.
Our expectations are different. I mean, that's all this is. Like, last year, like, they were 2-6, 2-7, whatever it was, and people were like, well, I expected that. This year we didn't expect this.
No.
And that's what's tough to take. And that's why, like, I wish the record was a little bit better. I also know we have a long way to go, and I'd like to wait out and see where we are at the end to take stock on what is next. But clearly things have to change, and I think things are going to change. And we started to see that with a change of kicker and a move of position to Collins, and we'll see what the next moves are. And frankly, too, with the trade deadline coming, let's see how they react to that. And there might not be much to do, but it will be very telling in whatever they do during it.
Yeah, and I think then they can decide if they want to make any moves, whether it's in the lineup or whatever. They just have to play better. And if if you start to do that, then people will feel a little bit better about what they're putting out there.
Agreed.
So there you go. Bram, have a good bye week, and we'll talk to you, I guess, in a couple of weeks.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Bram. That's it for this episode. I'll be back with another one on Wednesday. Thanks to Bram for joining me, and thanks to you for tuning in. Again, another tough year. Truly feel for you guys. I'll talk to you next time.